Have you ever found yourself staring into the quiet of your home and thinking, okay, now what? The kids are gone. The schedule is now wide open, and suddenly you're no longer the center of someone else's world. It's jarring, isn't it? And whether you're grieving, relieved, or somewhat widely in between, I want you to know you are not alone in this. Hey, I'm Jody Silverman, a life coach, empowerment speaker, and empty nester living her best and most fulfilled life. And today's conversation, it's the exact one you did not know you needed. I am being joined by award-winning journalist and author Rita Lussier, whose book, And Now Back to Me, Stories from an Empty Nest, is like a hug for your heart. We're diving into the messy, honest truths of what happens after the kids leave. From awkward Friday nights with your partner to rediscovering your purpose between caring for aging parents and catching your breath. And if you're feeling stuck, confused, or like you're losing yourself in the shift, be sure to grab the resource I linked in the show notes after the episode. It'll help you navigate this season with more clarity and more joy. Are you ready? This episode is your permission slip to start coming back to you. Let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Rita.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited to have you. I believe, at this time that we're sharing this episode, I call it the empty nest season. It's a time where a lot of moms have just and dads have dropped their child off at college or maybe moved them into a new apartment. So I think it's such an important conversation to have. But before we dive in to our big talking points to support our moms, can you share a little bit of the backstory about how you got to do the work you're doing that led you to write this book?
Sure. Let's see. It all started when my youngest daughter left for college, and I surprised myself by my reaction, which I felt very rudderless, if you will, very lost, very confused. So as the days went on, I started to rely on two things that seem to center me. One is running, and the second is writing. So we'll talk about the writing part because that's directly related to the book.
Yeah.
But I found myself coming in from my run every morning and I'm trying to come up with a new routine, spending some time writing. I wrote a column for the Providence Journal for a dozen years, so it was very easy for me to get back into that habit. And I would just let myself write about whatever I was feeling, whatever was happening. And over time, I started to realize I had quite a few stories that I had written, and I thought maybe I'll have a book here. And I actually ended up having a book.
You do, and it's a beautiful book of the stories of And Now Back to You. It's called And Now Back to Me: Stories from an Empty Nest. And I started reading it, and
Yay.
a lot of women will see themselves in your stories,
Yeah.
because I always say we're so much more alike than we are different, especially when it comes to motherhood and
Yeah.
parenting.
That's my hope. Yes.
So let's dive into it. So we're gonna let's start with some insights from you on how we can help our audience, those moms that are struggling right now with the reality of an empty nest. How can they ease that empty nest transition?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that it is a big transition.
Yes.
And I don't think we give enough acknowledgement to that as a society. I think we tend to think like, okay, if you're working all your life and you retire, that's a big deal. But you were taking care of your kids and now you're not. Well, okay. So I think that's a misperception. I will admit I had it. And I think there's also a little bit of a stigma that makes you feel like if you are feeling bad, like I was, that there must be something wrong with you, that maybe you didn't, have anything interesting in your life other than your family. And, you didn't have a big career or a fascinating hobby or something like that. And I can tell you that in the couple months since this book has been released, I have met dozens of parents with high high achievers, big jobs, big hobbies, big interests outside of the home, and they are devastated by their children moving out. So,
I want to thank you for saying that because the question I get a lot is, so how have you found from the people you've interviewed, the moms that you've helped and supported through coaching, the difference in how they're feeling if they decided to work full time as a stay-at-home mom, which is a job, or had a career? I said no. I said it doesn't discriminate. I had a very full life. I wasn't devastated, but I felt the loss. So I'm happy you said that because to just if you're that woman who says, "Well, I don't understand why my friend is so devastated," that's not fair and it's not right because we all handle there's great empty nest. It's grief. It's a loss. So I appreciate you saying that.
yeah, and I think that it's important to acknowledge that this is a good transition. It's positive news. You've been raising these kids all this time because you want them to leave. You want them to go out on their own and be independent. But even something as good as that can be difficult
Yeah.
to go through.
Yes. So I'm thank you for sharing that and starting us off with that because it is very important. So how can we ease? What are some ways to ease the transition?
There are any number of things, but one thing is just to be patient with yourself. I think, at least for me, I had all these expectations. I'm going to have all this time to myself. I'm going to have all this freedom. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then mentally, I was like not feeling like doing this and doing that. And I think you just have to be patient and say, I've been in this routine with these human beings for decades. So why wouldn't I feel kind of lost? And
Yeah.
I think that's very important to start
It
out
is.
with.
I agree. Patience, honoring the way you feel,
Yes.
and yeah, absolutely, because it's not something you want to ignore. Because, like you said, it's been decades. And for me, it was like that the hours between like 4 and 7. I really didn't know what to do with myself. And you're right. Like for me, I'm like, I'm just going to get out of the house during that time and change up my routine. But for somebody else, it might be harder for them to change up the routine. So be patient with yourself, honor your feelings. And then if it goes on for a really long time and you feel you need help, ask for help. Call a
Exactly.
friend, call a therapist, call whoever you need.
Yep.
Read the book. Um, I know you talk, you go into a lot in your book, but what were some unexpected surprises for you?
So there were so many. I don't even know how to begin, but I guess I could start with one that should have been obvious, but I will say it was not, which is how awkward it was with my husband. Like, we really hadn't spent too much time alone in 20 something years. And suddenly, he's picking me up at a Friday night yoga class. And it's the first weekend we're alone. And I write about it in
Yes, you did.
the book. And it's so, I mean, literally, I got in the car, I look over at him, and he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't know. What do you want to do?" And then he said, "Well, we should do something. I mean, it's Friday night. Don't you think we should do something?" So we literally drove around Newport, Rhode Island, having this circular conversation. And eventually we ended up at our neighbor's restaurant. We sat at the bar and had takeout. And, we figured it out. And that was pretty much what we were doing for quite some time, figuring it out as we went. But that was surprising. Had not anticipated that.
You know what? A few women, more than a few women, have said to me that when the kids left and they found themselves at the dinner table that first night, you found yourself in a car wondering what to do. And one woman in particular, I remember she said she looked up and just looked at him and thought to herself, when did you get here?
I
Like,
love that.
because our kids are like smack in the center of our life, of our world, right?
Yes.
And everything's around that. So, and I love it. And for those who get the book, there's a link in our bio. But yes, that on page 12, it's called The First Weekend Alone.
Yes.
And you talk about how it was awkward. And I think that's really refreshing. What I love most is how you really share so much about yourself. Because I said this at the beginning, there's so many women that won't talk about it. They think there's something wrong with them. They think, oh my God, something's wrong with my marriage. It doesn't mean your marriage is over. It just means you have to figure out ways to connect again
Exactly.
and be vulnerable to do that.
Exactly. So
What?
that was one surprise. Another big surprise was that almost about the same time as the day-to-day responsibility for my children got lifted from me, um, a new responsibility was there that I should have seen coming, another expected transition, which was my parents all of a sudden needed more help.
Mm,
And, we like to call it the sandwich generation.
yeah.
And I've heard so many stories of other parents who go from one thing to the next in a heartbeat. And all of a sudden, I was helping out my dad with my mom who had Alzheimer's. And, so my days weren't exactly so free right away.
Right?
So that was I think, a very common shared experience. It's like all the midlife stuff
Yeah.
sort of comes converging on you at the same time.
Yeah, you have to think like, God bless us women. I mean, not only do, if we're fortunate enough to actually give physical birth, but just raising your children and at the same time that they're ready to go off into the world, menopause hits and caring for our parents are aging and retirement might, oh my God, it's time to retire. And
Yeah.
maybe you're forced into retirement. We get hit with and relationships are changing, both with our spouses and friends. So much hits us all at once. That's why I think midlife is it can be described as an explosion.
Yes, that's
So,
great.
so like an unexpected surprise is like the awkwardness with, just you and your spouse being alone, realizing, oh my God, now my parents need me. So the unexpected surprise if I really don't have all my time.
Yes. Another unexpected thing for me was, so your kids leave,
Mhm.
and in my case, they went to college, and I start little by little starting to feel like I'm gonna be independent, this is gonna be okay, and guess what? They come back.
They
And it's
do.
fall break, and it's winter vacation, and I must say, every time that happened, I felt so good. "Hey, they're back, I know what to do, I'm a mom, I reveled in it," but then they go out the door again. So it's like this yo-yo back and forth thing that goes on for years. So I
Yeah.
think it really kind of inhibits you from, gaining a new momentum.
Well, they're home again, gone again, home again, gone again. And
Yes.
they're not the same children.
Right.
And you're
And
not the same house.
right,
So
exactly.
there are certain things that we can fall back into as far as mom mode, but you kind of are parenting your mom. I call it momming your children differently because
Exactly.
they're when they're out, whether they're in the world or at school, they're in charge of their lives. They don't have you there saying, "Did you do this? Did you do that? What time are you sleeping till? Are you waking up?" So they're coming home, and all of a sudden they're back
Yeah,
on their mom and dad's roof. So that's another unexpected surprise. You're excited, and yet they're gone again. Just as soon as you get excited again, they're gone again. Then the grief comes back again. That feeling of loss hits again.
I know.
I
It's
know.
crazy.
That's
So
why when they're gone, it's really important to work on some of these things. It's really, really important to work on these things. I just want to read. There's something you said. I want to go back to the marriage. I love this. It's on page 20. It's under the chapter, the Beethoven breakfast.
that is when I went to my parents' house just on a whim because I felt like they had a long marriage. They're up in the 60-year mark. They might have some secrets. And I walk in and they can't even hear me because they're having breakfast. They have Beethoven blaring, and it's like they're dining. They're just making the most of that moment, and that was like a secret right there. But anyway, yes.
I love it because you say in there when you went to see them, you wondered, do two such very different people have fun together? And your dad said it's easy. We make sure there's something in it for both of us.
Yes.
And then you go on to say, you're saying, wait, your dad is good. Your dad's good at finding humor, but you also then go on to say there's no denying it. When it comes to marriage, a sense of humor helps, as does the ability to stay calm, to compromise, to share responsibility, to work and play together, and to respect each other. And then you say, but I've got a feeling there's something else. Nothing spectacular, but important nonetheless. I thought that was such a good chapter because you paid attention to your parents because they worked so well together. And sometimes we can go back and look and really look and notice, be fully present, and we can learn something.
Yes.
I
That,
love that. Love that.
thank
So
you.
there's so unexpected surprises. We had a few of those. But what about some common themes that you wrote about from the empty nest about rekindling your marriage and about friendships, and you talk about rebooting careers, decisions. Share a little bit about some of the common themes that showed up for you.
Well, for me, again, about all these things converging at the same time, I mentioned that I had written a column for the Providence Journal for a dozen years. Of course, that kind of stopped at the same time as my daughter went out the door. So that was just yet another reason for me to feel lost.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of chapters in there about my efforts to find myself in a career sense. And, you know, it's just this whole time, it just seemed like everything was coming at me, but I did find it, as you might guess, in my writing.
Yeah, the writing proved to be something beautiful for you. So, what are some ways, we're curious, what are some ways parents, especially moms, can discover new purpose and set new goals? Because that's the number one thing that women say when they find the Moms Who Dare Facebook group, my community, like, who am I now? Which I think is code for what's my purpose.
Yeah. I think, again, this idea of patience is very important because it's going to take some time unless you just have, and you're very fortunate if you do, this real clear cut vision of this is what I've always wanted to do as soon as the kids leave. But most of us don't. And so that's going to require you to have some time by yourself, to be willing and open to try new things, to understand that, I'm going to like this, I'm not going to like that, but I'm going to be open to it, and you will find it. I
Mm.
mean, I have a friend, a close friend actually. She's actually a she works for our volunteer fire department, and she's like a rescue worker, and she goes, to all these accidents and everything. So she had to go undergo a lot of training, a lot of physical fitness, but that's what she ended up doing when her kids left, and she's still doing it. She's actually just got promoted to lieutenant. So,
Wow.
yeah, and she's a little petite
Don't
woman, but
underestimate petite. Don't underestimate small yet
oh,
mighty.
I am so proud of her. But
Yeah.
it's just you have no idea what you might end up doing.
Yeah. No, you don't. You don't. I love how you said stay open to opportunities. That's what the daring part is when I talk, when people say, what does that mean? It just means dare to be open to new and think, dare to say yes to invitations that you usually might have said no to because you were tired, because the kids needed you. Say yes to going to that meet the author event, right?
Yes,
Say yes to saying that, taking that advantage of that free Pilates class at the new Pilates studio that just opened up down the street. Say, pay attention and say yes to new opportunities because that's when you meet new people and discover new things about yourself.
yes. Say yes, like my husband did, to going to my yoga class, which was hilarious.
Right?
So,
Look at
yes,
that. You who
it
would
made
you
for the funniest chapter. So,
I mean, I would never envision my husband at a yoga club. We do
you
that.
don't want to envision your
No, I
husband.
don't. My husband can barely touch his knees, let alone get down on the floor. But we go to stretch zone together. We go get our stretches together. So that's
That's
good.
good.
So yeah. So all right. So as we begin to wrap this up before we get to our dare for our audience,
Okay.
are there certain lessons or principles that you hope readers will take away from your book?
I hope that they will, first of all, know, and that was my goal with the book, is that I look at it as an emotional guide for readers, and it would be my biggest reward if some readers tell me that I help to reassure them that they're not in this alone, because I felt very alone, and I want them to feel like, like you said, maybe some of my stories will resonate and they'll say, God, I felt that. God,
Yeah.
I've thought that. And
Yeah.
so that is one thing. And then the whole thing that we talked about being patient and being open,
Yeah.
both of those things.
So what would you dare our listeners to do or not do or just a dare? Nobody gets out of here without a dare, Rita. It's just how we roll here at Beyond the Empty Nest.
All right. So I'm going to tell you that my big dare here, after just thinking about it, it popped in my head. Dare to fail. Go ahead and dare to fail. And I'm going to go back to my column days because this made such a big impression on me. I was able to interview Robert Ballard, the guy who discovered the Titanic
Oh,
under the
yes.
water.
Yes.
Yes. Well, he did that after many attempts and he failed, but he just kept going and he found it. But what he said to me in the interview, he said, fail like crazy. I always remember that. Fail like crazy. He said, failure is like tuition. It's how you learn about yourself, your abilities, and it will lead you to what you're supposed to do. And I always thought that was pretty wonderful
I love
advice.
that. I
Yeah.
love that. And that goes with, being open to opportunities, saying yes, and go ahead and fail. If there's a business you wanted to start, fail. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's a powerful interview you did. That's some great insights there. So I really thank you, Rita. So many of our listeners are in this space of empty nest, and your voice and your messages and your stories and your vulnerability to share your life and your experience through empty nest. For those of you not watching, go watch the video. I keep holding up the book. It's called And Now Back to Me, Stories from the Empty Nest. And we have a link in our show notes below where you can grab it. There's all different ways to contact and read all about Rita and the work she does. Is there anything you want to say to our listeners before we sign off? Other
Um,
than no?
I hope that if you pick up my book, that it helps you and that you do realize you're not alone.
Yes, no, you're not alone. And we're all here to help you. Those of us that have been there are right here waiting to support you. So grab the book, connect with Rita. Rita, thank you so much. And what was the takeaway, everybody? You know, my listeners, I like to hear what your takeaway is. Either shoot me an email or in the top of our show notes, it says send me a message. It's called fan mail. I don't see your name and I can't reply, but I read every bit of fan mail I get. And I will make sure Rita gets it as well. Remember that next week there'll be another new episode of Beyond Empty Nest. And as I always say, dare on. If you're walking away from this episode thinking, oh my gosh, this is so me, I want you to remember one thing. You are not crazy. You're just shifting. And that shift, it can feel awkward, painful, and even exciting. But it's also your invitation to rediscover who you are. You don't have to do it alone. And quite frankly, I don't recommend it. Come say hi in the Moms Who Dare Facebook group. Or better yet, explore the Dare On membership community, a space where women like you are daring to show up, ask questions, and create their next chapter with purpose. You've got this, and I've got you. Until next time, Dare On.